Good evening, everyone. I'm Ronald Presner, Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Mount Pleasant, and welcome to this evening's meeting. Before we start, let me first introduce the members of our board. To my far right is Adrian Novak. To my immediate right is Mr. Nicholas DeChico. To my left is Kathy Niclario. She's Secretary of Zoning and Planning. And to her far left is Mr. George Lapatos. We have one member, Herb Dorr, who will not be here this evening. And sitting at the table in the front, diagonally in front of me, is Mr. Joseph Briganti, who is the building inspector for the town of Mount Pleasant. We have 4 members tonight, which means that if 2 of the members decide to vote against an application, the application will be denied. The way we run the meeting, I'll call your application. I will read it. I'll read the application for the public record. I will swear you in. You'll describe why you need the variance and what you, and then from there, we'll open it up to discussion with the other members of the board. Once that's complete, I will ask if anyone is for or against an application. And when that is finished, you're excused. Now, we have been, as a new practice, when I say new practice, probably within the last year, rather than go home and watch late night television to see if we made a decision, we make the decision right here and there. So unless there is circumstantial evidence that says we have to adjourn it for another time or we have to seek additional information. So to start tonight's meeting, let me start with 24-22 is MME LLC. All right, raise your right hand. Testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And your name?
Is Lou DeMacy, I'm a project architect.
And where are you located?
My office is in Mount Kisco, New York.
Okay. This is regarding the premises located at Lakeshore Drive in Pleasantville. And it's an appeal. It's from the decision of the building inspector for the town of Mount Pleasant. And it's designated on the tax map for the town of Mount Pleasant as 89/99-20-1-14. And the application is for a proposed new single-family dwelling on the legal standard 10,000 square foot lot in the R10 zone, and your variance you're seeking is a mean lot width.
That's correct.
Okay. 75 feet required. You have 64 feet. Okay?
So it is a vacant lot. It was subdivided some time ago. So the shape of the lot is the problem. It's not a rectangular lot at all, so when we measure across the mean, it's 64 feet. Other than that, we make setbacks, height requirements, and all other restrictions that are imposed to the lot. So what we're proposing is a single-family house with a detached garage, driveway across the side. So these dotted lines, it's not on this one, but on this one. These dotted lines here represent the setbacks, and we're conforming with the setbacks.
Okay.
So the only variance we're asking is for the mean width.
All right. When we were outside doing our inspections, the first thing that came up in my mind was the fact that we had inadequate sight distance. And speaking with Mr. Briganti just a little while ago, he said that's being addressed, or has been addressed by the building department. By the planning board, rather, I'm sorry. So that was my main concern regarding that particular application. So you're going to remove all that dirt, the rock that's in the front there.
That's correct.
Because the way it is now, if somebody comes around the corner, they're going to get whacked. I don't seem to have a problem with the, we have 11 feet. But that's only me. Adrian, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Mr. DeChico?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Levatos?
Just one small question. When we did our site visit, we were able to access the lot through the opening that was created in that rocky ledge that butts the road. And it was a little bit difficult to see how that's going to lay out on the lot in terms of the proposed structure. Is it going to be road frontage that's going to come directly through the rock that has to be removed? Or is it in the area that's cleared already? Because with all that ledge still in place, it's kind of hard for me to gauge exactly how this is going to wind up laying out on the property.
Are you worried about cars pulling out?
No.
No.
I understand. The issue with that isn't actually within the purview of the zoning board, and it is a planning board issue. We were concerned about it because we recognize the potential safety issues. My question really is just with regard to how this structure, this proposed structure is going to lay out on that lot, where there was what I saw to be high ledge. Okay, the rock area that abuts the road seemed to be about maybe 12 feet high or so. If you stood on the road, it was taller than I was, and by far. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how that ledge is going to be addressed to allow for this
It's going to be taken down for, a couple of feet.
down to
Yeah.
grade level of the road?
Not to the road, no.
Okay, so
About
what
half
are we
that-
looking at in terms of,
About half that distance, like 5 feet, because there are going to be steps up to the first floor, and we're going to try to get a basement, obviously if we can. If it's too much to dig out, then we're going to abandon the basement idea and do a crawl space.
Okay.
But we're not going to make the house any higher than it needs to be by code.
okay, so the idea would be to bring the ledge down
Mm-hmm.
to a level that's several feet above the roadway?
Yeah.
And then from there, perhaps
Landscape
do
it.
whatever you need to do
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
as far as the foundation, whether it's a crawl space or a basement.
Yeah.
But from there, maintain code requirements for the height of the structure itself.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anyone here for or against this application?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm here in favor of the application.
And you are?
My husband and I own the home immediately to the north at 135 Lakeshore Drive.
Okay.
This has to be sworn.
And your name?
Maximilian Mahalik. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have some photos.
I'd
May I?
love to see him.
Thank you.
Just hold on a second, sir.
It just has to be,
Raise your testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I swear.
All right. Let me state your full name for the record.
Maximilian Mahalik, 135 Lakeshore Drive, Pleasantville, New York.
Thank you.
And just for clarity, you said you're the home to the north, so if you're looking at the property from the street, that would be to the left.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
cool. Gotta fix those brackets.
I'm staying. So,
Works.
yep, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you. I am a resident immediately to the north in favor of this application. A little bit of an unusual role for me because I am a land use attorney at Cuddy and Fader, 5 days a week and most nights a week. But I'm here as a private citizen tonight. Looking at the site, as discussed by the applicant, they received their subdivision approval, their steep slope permit, and they were doing a lot of work on the site when I understand they received a stop work order. Looking at your various tests and those balancing factors that you apply, that site right now as is doesn't do great things for community character, doesn't do great things for the physical and environmental condition of the neighborhood. We would love to see this project finished. We'd love to see a home there because I would rather much see a home than all the disturbed land looking just north from my property there. Or excuse me, that would be just looking south. But we would love to see this finished and have a home there and have some neighbors, much better than a hole in the ground. So with that, happy to answer any questions, but we would ask that you approve this variance.
Well, the main concern is they started construction on the property. That's why you have the debris and the dirt and everything else. And a stop order was issued. And, but that comes with any construction project. You even get a mess when you change your driveway. I think that by putting a house on the property would be a good thing. And the main concern that I had, as I mentioned earlier, was sight distance for the driveway. And I didn't think that the 11 feet was going to make that much of a difference, considering under 267B, we always try to work within, is it self-created? 90, like Ivory Soap, 99.9% of the time, it's self-created. That, will it have an effect on the neighborhood? Yes, it will. It'll make it better. Or if you were putting something else in there and it was detrimental to the neighborhood, we would look at it that way also. So it's a single-family house, it's in an R10 zone, and it's new construction.
Yes.
And I'm sure that the builder's going to landscape it and do whatever else is responsible, his responsibilities are to make sure that gets done.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, the builders, they spoke with us this evening. They've come over to our house. They've given us their contact information. They're very accessible, and we are excited to see them finish this project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the board, do we have,
Anyone else?
is there anyone else here that has anything to say? All right, raise your hand, please come forward. Are you both going to speak?
Yeah.
Or you're going to speak? Okay.
Well, I'm not good
Raise
at
your right
speaking.
hand, please. Testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yeah.
Yes.
You do, okay. And your name?
Laura.
I'm sorry?
Laura
Laura? And what's your last name, Laura?
Nelson.
What?
Nelson, Nelson.
Can you scream at me?
Sorry.
Or just bend the
Sorry.
microphone down, maybe.
Take the microphone, it's easier.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
We live,
And
what?
what would you wish to say?
I'm just saying we're the house on the other side.
We're 121 Lakeshore Drive. We're the residents there right now.
Okay,
Her father, Paul Nelson, he passed away from brain cancer. He was, you know, the one a little initially opposed to this development at first. So if
Right.
you want to go on and say a little about that.
Well, mainly we think it's just too close to the house. And don't want the construction and all
see,
the,
it's hard, you know, even though I wear a hearing aid, and I got myself on full maximum here,
Just
you've
shout.
got a
Just
sweet
shout
voice,
it.
but I can't hear it.
we think it's too close to the house.
It's too close,
Yeah.
the existing house that we have now.
The construction lot. So the initial construction was done about, give or take, 6 months ago, a little more than that. Hence, it was just wild. It was a wild lot. I mean, we acknowledge the fact that we're just stating our piece for, you
Right.
know, the
The main
opposition of
concern
it.
is the building is put within the construction site. You have easements,
Mhm.
side yard easements, so on and so forth. And it's within those easements. Setbacks, thank you. So they're if your property is, say, 64 feet, you might be allowed to go to 44 feet. Maybe this house is 34 feet. That's why we have these guidelines. But it's a project that was started, and the problem is, unfortunately, you had a situation in your family, and we got a building lot that looks like hell,
It does.
and, you know, and we have a contractor who's looking to finish a project, and possibly another family to move in and enjoy the neighborhood, and it's a beautiful area over there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what to say.
We know. We're just, you know, we're here more in support of her father's wishes and just saying
Yeah.
that as a symbolic thing. And also, the one other thing I kind of took away was that it is a dangerous road in terms of curves. I don't know if there's in the purview of, you know, your commission in terms of speeding and this and that and the driveway there.
Now, my concern was, when we were out there on Saturday, was that there was stone
Yeah.
outcroppings, so that if somebody was a homeowner was pulling out of that driveway,
Mhm.
they got an excellent chance of getting killed.
And we suffer from that every
Right,
day when
so-
we pull out of our driveway.
Right, so the main concern here was, and it's been addressed by the planning board, and I was told that by Mr. Briganti, that they're removing
The
a lot
stone.
of that stone, so that when you pull out of the driveway, you can see if there's any oncoming cars. And it's not whether it's a busy road or a non-busy road. The fact of the matter is, if there's a car in that road and it comes around the turn and it's doing 30 miles an hour, you're not going to walk away from it.
Of course, no, it's,
But on our side, it's high stone on our side,
Yeah.
so it's
So
gonna be
we
a,
try to, I'm very safety oriented. And even though it's within our jurisdiction, or not in our jurisdiction, I always bring it up. But this has been addressed. So the only thing that we're really concerned about tonight is the mean width on the property. And 11 feet, it's not that big because it's an irregular shaped lot. So if you took a little bit from the back and put it towards the front, you would have a lot that would probably be in line, and they wouldn't even be here tonight. All right.
okay.
Can I just be clear that if you're looking at the subject property, you live in the house to the right? If you're
Yeah.
from the street looking at the lot? Question?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
no, that's it. Thank you for
Okay.
your time. I
Yeah,
appreciate
no
it.
problem.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Is there anyone else for or against this application? Any member of the board, do they have any other questions to ask the applicant?
No.
No?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Do we want to vote on this application?
I'm prepared to at this time.
Okay.
All right, so Mr. Chairman, I'll make an application at this time to approve Z-24-23, I'm sorry, Z-24-22 as submitted.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Novak. Mrs. DeChico?
Aye.
Aye. And the chairman votes aye, so it's carried.
Great. Thank you for your,
4-0.
thank you.
Next application for this evening is 2427. Just to point out, that application 2423 was adjourned this evening. Raise your right hand, sir. The testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
It is.
And you are?
My name is Kevin Ellenwood. I'm a Deputy Portfolio Manager with the Department of Environmental Protection in Corona, New York.
Okay. This is regarding the New York State Department of Environmental Protection as the owner of the premises located at 0 Westlake Drive. It's an appeal from the decision of the building inspector for the town of Mount Pleasant. On a tax map, it's 89/117-11-3-1. And this is for a proposed 12.5-foot high retaining wall on a legal standard parcel of 85 acres in the R40 zone. The variance you're seeking at maximum wall height of, is required is 6 feet. You're proposing a 12.5 feet or a 6.5-foot variance, correct?
Correct.
All right. Can we move that
Yep.
just a little? There you go.
So if you'll allow,
I know.
I have a brief presentation. Is that good enough?
You know, I'm just
Just a
commenting
tad
how,
bit more, if you could. I'm sorry.
No problem.
commenting how we could use two screens, one to face out and one to face us, but that's,
Is there any,
Not
let
up
me
for
just,
discussion.
any question? Most of the people here for this application, could you raise your hand? You got 1, 2, 3, 4.
You want to
6.
invite them to move their seats? If they want to move their seats.
If you want to move
Chairman.
your seats and come up, so then you can see what's going on.
So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight about this. If you'll allow, I have a brief presentation to give the context
Yeah.
of the overall project before we get into the need for the retaining wall.
You can proceed.
We good? Can you see? Okay.
Can you folks see from where you are? Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I'm here tonight to present the Kensico Eastview Connection project, and we're here for a variance, as you said, for a retaining wall here at our Kensico site. So this project is the construction of a new water conveyance tunnel in between the Kensico Reservoir here over to our ultraviolet treatment plant in Eastview. So it involves construction both here at Kensico and over at Eastview, and it's a multi-year contract, and we've broken it up into phases. So, you know, we've been coming to the town as we progress through the work. So the reason for this tunnel is that when we constructed and put our ultraviolet treatment plant into operations, one of the two aqueducts bringing water to that plant doesn't have the pressure to do that. So presently, water to CDUV is only supplied by the Delaware Aqueduct. Our Catskill Aqueduct has been offline since then. So this limits our ability to shut down the Delaware Aqueduct, and we really don't have any way for an extended shutdown of that. This project is part of the larger Hillview Consent Decree project. So it's a requirement, it's a court-ordered requirement to complete this work. And with that, there are associated project milestones through design and construction. So we have to show good faith effort of completing this work ahead of the Hillview cover construction. Okay, so in addition to that need, the benefit of this project is that it enhances the resiliency of our system, of the drinking water system, by providing that redundancy of that second tunnel. And then we also have greater capacity to convey water to the UV facility, so closer to its full capacity. Also, we provide the potential to, in case of emergency, bypass Kensico and use what's currently the inactive Catskill Aqueduct. We could bring that back online in emergency. And then this also provides for future compatibility with future infrastructure projects. Okay, so as I said, we've broken this up into multiple contracts, multiple phases. So this is the first time of a few times that we'll be appearing before you for the various elements of our project. So this first phase is it's fully at the Kensico campus down the street from here, and it prepares this site for the following contracts. So it involves setting up a staging area for this first contractor and then future contractors. The bulk of the grading and excavation and tree removal that needs to occur for the project happens during this first phase. And then the goal for this first phase, for all that material, you saw some of it, you can see some of it now, the northern part of our site, is that whatever we're digging out, we're placing back on site, so we limit or eliminate the need to truck material off for this first phase. Now, what we're here to talk about tonight is the relocation of Westlake Drive. Currently, that goes through the center of our site, and this is an active drinking water facility. So we are going to relocate that road to the very northern edge of our property. And then by doing that, we can separate public traffic and public use from operations and from our construction activities. And then we also are able to put a perimeter fence around our entire site. So we have one single secured site rather than what presently, you have the public access right through the middle of our site. And then what we're here tonight to talk about is on that road, we need to install two retaining walls that exceed the town code requirement of no more than 6 feet. Also, during this first phase, we'll be constructing a parking lot for use by the high school students. And then we have some various facilities on site that we're going to be constructing. Okay, so this is a rendering of what the site will look like after this first phase of work. So you can see this here is Westlake Drive, right? It comes down here along the reservoir, and it comes out to Columbus Avenue. So we are going to construct a new roadway here at the northern edge of our property. The high school is like right here. And then this here is a Con Edison tower. The transmission line runs through our property. This you can see from Columbus Avenue. And then there's another one here that you can see if you're driving south on Westlake Drive. Okay, so this is the same view. It just zooms in a little bit more. And this is to demonstrate the need for the retaining walls. So we're pushed to the northern edge of our property, and we have to work our way through those two Con Ed towers. And so we really can't curve back and forth. So we're limited in the length of road. Right? It's pretty much a straight run. So that kind of dictates the grade of the road. And if you've been out there, you know that it's very steep. We actually have approved steep slopes permits. So we can't comply with all town codes for the roadway. So it's, we worked with the town to decide the best path forward, right? So we can either satisfy the restriction on the retaining wall height, and in doing that violate the requirements for the roadway itself, or we conform to the roadway requirements and install the retaining wall. So specifically, we are choosing, or we're working with the town to comply with the K values, so the vertical curves that are set by the town code, right? So that's basically how steep and the site distances you have for vertical curves. And we also meet the town requirement for the slopes of the road itself as well. And then trying to meet the minimum roadway width. And then in addition to that, we have this, you can see that the tower's a little bit better here. There's a tower here, and then in yellow, that's where the retaining wall is. And then again here, the other tower and another retaining wall. We need to keep a buffer between the foundation of the tower and the roadway itself. Okay, so here's a plan view of that. So, as I said, the alignment of the road is kind of dictated. We really can't play with that. And, we looked at staggering the retaining wall to keep within variance. And because we're so restricted there with the path and the buffer to the Con Ed towers, staggering is just not an option. We just have to have one vertical retaining wall. So here, this is the south side retaining wall. That's this here. I believe Con Ed designates it as D109, but it's 208 feet in length, and it varies between 4 and 12.5 feet, so a 6.5 foot variance. And then it's located about 6 feet from the roadway. And then this retaining wall, the north side of the proposed relocated Westlake Drive, it's about 250 feet in length, and it varies between 2 and 11 feet in height, so a variance of 5 foot there. And this one is located about 14 feet from the edge of the road. Both of them would be cast-in-place concrete. Okay, so here are some photos of the existing conditions. So this view is standing near the top of the hill, facing Columbus Avenue. It doesn't really give good perspective to just how steep it is. High clear would be right about here, and we would construct the road pretty much straight through here. And it's pitched quite steeply there. And then the retaining wall would be right around here. And you'd have a ramp coming up and then a ramp going down. Okay, so this is a view of the other Con Ed tower. This is again standing towards the top of the hill, looking east, so the reservoir would be in the background. And right about here, it drops off pretty steeply down to Westlake Drive. Same tower, this is Westlake Drive here. The reservoir would be over on the left here. And this is where the relocated Westlake Drive would turn in. So we have to cut through this hillside here. All right, here are some renderings of what it will look like when we're finished. This is a view of the tower closer to Columbus, so Columbus would be behind us. This is looking east. And you have the retaining wall here. The ramps would be going up one on each side, and then, a chain link fence on top for fall protection. And then this is the Kensico site here. This shows one of the proposed buildings. Okay, so this is the same tower, just looking from the other way. This would be heading, this is east, is that correct? I don't know that that's correct. This is facing Columbus Avenue, and then this is same tower. This would be our campus here, so it's just another view. Okay, so now this is the other tower. This is the one closer to the reservoir. This is our site over here. Again, another retaining wall, and you'd have ramps for Con Edison to access their tower on either side. Again, that's just another view of the same tower. And then this one here, this is Westlake Drive. The reservoir's on the side, and once we construct the road, you can kind of make out this would be the gate across the existing Westlake Drive, so that would become part of our site. And this would be turning on the new Westlake Drive, and you can see the ramp up to the tower there. And that's the extent of it.
So to give us a perspective,
Yes.
the new entrance and exit onto the reservoir, or we'll call it Westlake Drive, basically it's going to be where Sergio's restaurant is, in that general area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we would create, it would be a four-way intersection on Columbus, so it would become Columbus and Highclere and Westlake Drive.
Right. How far away from those towers are the walls?
I'm sorry, are the what?
Those retaining walls, how far away are they from the towers?
Yeah, I believe it's either 25 or 40 feet. I'm sorry, I don't have it in here, but it was dictated by Con Edison, so we worked with them to set a minimum distance we could,
I'm just thinking of soil disturbance. You're going in 25 feet.
Right.
And this wall is going to be a concrete wall, or is it going to be a
Yes.
stone wall?
It's a cast-in-place concrete. So we took our foundation design, the retaining wall design, and we shared those calculations with the engineers at Con Edison. So they've reviewed our design, and
This is like a mafia block, they call it?
it's cast-in-place concrete.
This is cast in place. The other question I have, in the areas where you have that you're going to have fencing on that 12-foot height? Problem you have, even though you have your place, that whole area fenced off, there's always going to be somebody that's going to go in there, because you have access through the back. If I recall, I don't remember the road, but back, there are houses, which we saw in the past, where the towers keep coming towards Westlake Drive, from, I'll say, from the east.
Okay.
And there's nothing there, and, you know, you get a bunch of kids, they want to go out and have, play paintball or do something over there, and you have a wall that's 12 feet high, and you don't really, nobody's paying attention, so they can go off that wall and get seriously hurt.
Right, so at the top of the wall, at the top of the ramp, so right at the edge of the retaining walls, we have put in a 6-foot fence. Well, sorry, we haven't put it in, but it's part of our design to install a 6-foot fence, not for security, but for fall
Yeah,
protection.
now this is going to be off the wall or on the wall, because the difference is, if it's on the wall, then it's no longer a 12-foot high wall, it's an 18-foot high wall. And there would have to be off the fence, which is fine, you know.
It is,
You
yeah,
have the
so,
room for it.
Yeah, but that's the purpose.
so you can kind of see it here. It's set, you know, towards the edge, but it's not right on the edge of the retaining wall, so it's set back a little bit.
Yeah. I have no further questions. Ms. Novak, do you have any questions?
Not at this time. I want to hear from the community.
Okay. Mr. DeChico?
I have a few.
Okay.
The current situation on Westlake Drive where the students and other people park, do you know
Yes.
approximately how many people park there every day?
It's approximately 30, and that's what we've accommodated in the parking lot. And this is, the parking lot will be conveyed to the school for their use. We'll convey it through an easement.
Can you go to the map, the gray map you just had, show the different zones, maybe?
This one?
No, to the right a little bit. Keep going. Yes. So, the parking lot is there in the middle left corner. That's the new proposed lot, and that would be 30 spaces, correct?
Correct.
And that's to roughly make up for the spaces that are being taken away.
Correct, from Westlake Drive, yes.
Was there any discussion, either internally or with the planning board, about increasing the access to parking based seeing that we're doing this construction? Or at this time to make a bigger parking lot or to increase accessibility to the fields behind the school at all?
Yeah, so I was not part of the discussions. I just know that that's the number that was settled on,
Okay.
but I can certainly take that back, yeah.
And then we have that Kensico East 2 trailer area
Yes.
right there. Can you just describe what that is for?
Yeah, so this would be temporary.
Is it where your cursor is, or is it just to the right where it says Ken's East 2 trailer area?
It's right here. So see these two boxes here, those represent the trailers. It's just, there's a pointer line here.
Oh, okay. That's because what I was wondering if you were planning to park, like physically where that box is where it says Kensico East 2 trailer.
No, so those are temporary construction trailers, and we need to provide parking on site. So we don't have public parking of our, construction work.
All right, so let me try and get to where I'm going at. So
Yep.
the idea here is that you want one unified lot,
Correct.
right? And that makes sense. But to get one unified lot is not a necessity for the functionality of what you're getting at with the Kensico Eastview Tunnel. Whether or not this lot is unified or not by the relocation of the road, it will not affect the functioning of the tunnel. Is that fair to say?
Well, we will have construction over the entire site, so it's not, it's not just the road that we're doing, but, this is what it's going to look like at the end of Phase 1. We have active work here, which you can see now, and we will eventually be working all over the entire site. So it also is a safety feature for the public that they're not traveling through what's going to be an active construction site for years.
Sure, that makes sense. But at the end of the day, this is more of a nice to have than it is a need to have for the water flow to function properly to get to the ultraviolet plant. At least that's the way I see it. And that this board has the authority or the ability to impose conditions, which, as I'm sure you're aware, are reasonable conditions and restrictions that are directly related to or incidental to the proposed use of the property. So my concern, and I don't know if this was discussed at all, and I know you weren't necessarily part of it, but I would have thought it would have been a much more broad discussion, is that we're taking away 30 spots from students and staff and people that need to access the high school. And we say it's 30, but some days it could be 35 or 40. When you get surge events, it could be even more. And we have a unique opportunity here for the DEP, who's requesting us to approve variances for something that at the end of the day is a nice to have, to really improve the parking situation at the high school for years to come. Not just for what the demand is now, but what for the demand might be in the next 5, 10, or 15, or 20 years. And also to improve accessibility to the fields behind the high school, which I'm sure you're not familiar, but if you ever tried to get there, you have to walk up a very narrow path right along where this parking lot is going to go walk up a long hill on a narrow path to access the turf fields. Whereas if the parking lot was extended slightly more and a couple of access points were created, it would change the quality of life for all the students for years to come. And I don't think that that's a big lift, and I do think it's related directly and or incidentally to this application, especially since it's part of your phase 1 project. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on perhaps adding that.
Right, so I respectfully disagree that it's a nice to have, because the goal here is it creates a secured perimeter, right? So it's the drinking water serving this town and the city and communities in between. So, we're creating a secure perimeter. It's not just the perimeter itself, but we have security features that we put in place. There are...
And I don't disagree with I don't think it's unreasonable what you're requesting.
Okay.
I get it.
Thank you. There are considerations for the location and the size of the parking lot and the grading that's required in this area. So I don't know that it's not a simple yes. It could be something that's, I believe those discussions have already been had and thought through, but...
And currently there's no street parking on the new Westlake Drive. It's only...
Correct, yeah.
It's only in the parking lot. So there's no room for overflow or surge.
Correct.
All right, a few more questions. The walls. Actually, no, while we're on this map, I have a
Sure.
question for you. Can you explain the lot to the right, read what that says, temporary operations entrance?
Yep.
And how does that relate, if at all, to the wall that's being requested?
It doesn't really, it doesn't directly relate
Well,
to the
what is it?
wall.
Tell me what it is.
So, yeah, so currently operations, the DEP operations uses existing Westlake Drive. So operations staff come in and come out of that site, and then the chemical deliveries also come through there. We need to, for construction, take over the whole site. So what we've proposed to the planning board is that we create this temporary operations entrance. So their staff and their deliveries would come through this entrance over the course of construction. This is not for my use. This isn't for construction vehicles using that intersection. We would, once we have this in place for the active facility, then and the relocated Westlake Drive is constructed and inspected and improved by the town engineer and building inspector, and we've closed this road, then I can begin to use this road for construction, and I separate all of that activity from the active operations.
So, just to go back to the original question about the parking, do you have any idea, I believe you indicated that might be something that you can discuss further with whoever you may need to discuss that with?
I would have to take it back. I would have to understand the history on how we arrived at where we are.
All right, so that's, thank you, and
Sure.
well, I might say I do appreciate the full presentation.
Sure.
It does help the board when we get a bigger, complete picture. So
No problem. I love talking about it.
Mr. Lapazos?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to bring up a couple things about the wall itself.
Okay.
As you know, we did a site visit. So when we walked the property, you know, we observed the topography, and certainly there is a significant height of the soil, and I understand there's a lot of movement of soil that's being done. But when you provided, there was another rendering that you did offer us during your PowerPoint that showed the facing the wall view.
It was a rendering?
That one. Whoop.
This one?
There you go.
Okay.
You know, it's strikingly, kind of looks like one of the walls at Sing Sing, which made me think, why can't we have it staggered? And I know you said something about, I think it was Con Ed dictated the buffer distance. Can Con Ed reconsider the buffer distance? Is there a code that requires that distance be provided? Because to stagger the wall and break that sheer height, I don't know how much distance is 12 and a half feet, but it's more than I would have hoped. And it's kind of an eyesore. I know you said that it can't be staggered, but I didn't hear the reasoning why. And I know you said Con Ed dictated there had to be a certain buffer, but I didn't hear you say how they come to dictate anything. So I guess those are the first two questions. How did that buffer get established, and why can't we stagger this wall?
Yeah, so I mean, they're tied. So these are transmission towers. They're not just regular power lines, and they have a significant foundation of footing to them. And so they set that buffer so we don't compromise their footing,
But you
basically.
don't even know what the distance is.
I don't personally, but I have it on the drawing, and I
I'm
don't have
sure
it in front of
somebody
me.
knows, but the
Yes.
point is, does that answer the question then of why the wall can't be staggered?
Yes. Yes, because we don't want to encroach on that buffer by having the second level closer to the tower.
So if you put a second piece of the wall, let's have a 6-foot height.
And that's
flat
6 foot
soil,
height.
Another 6-foot height.
Right.
That the second wall
Correct.
is going to be too close to the tower to do what? To
It-
compromise the structural integrity of the tower itself?
Right.
How?
Right. So I don't have the details on the structural part of it, right? But that is something that I can certainly get you a better answer on that.
Only because it looks awful. It really does. And it's, you know, we have applications all the time for sheer walls like that. We routinely work with applicants to try to minimize variances for wall height. On top of that, I know you said that it's set back, which maybe it is, but you're also adding, I guess, another 6 foot of height with that chain link fence on the top. It's really like 18 and a half feet. And I'm gonna just hope that maybe you could come back and you could offer us some more detail on the potential to minimize that height down. I haven't heard anything that says it can't be done, and it really should be explored. It looks like, I don't want to say an eyesore. It looks like it needs to be softened.
Yeah, I understand. I can certainly come back to you with the reasoning for it. But if I had a preference between a staggered wall and seeking a variance, I'd go the staggered wall. And so we explored
Staggered wall is
that.
preferable, there's no doubt.
Well, we explored that, and that's why we're seeking the variance for the height.
Because you're all the way at the northern end of the property now, so this
Yeah.
roadway, the width of it is the absolute minimum width that the town code will allow?
Yeah.
So it couldn't be moved further to allow for that staggering,
No.
even a few feet?
No.
And the structural integrity, again, maybe you can come back, but
Yep.
the idea being that there's no way to push a second piece of wall closer to the tower because it's going to interfere with the ability of the tower to have its structural integrity.
I'll just say, the staggering, it's because of the proximity of the tower, and I can certainly provide you a more technical
Based upon
response.
Con Ed's information that they provided to you.
Yes.
Let me ask one question, and what Mr. Lapazos was saying. If the distance from the tower to the wall is 25 feet, as an example, and the upper part of that wall is at 25 feet from the tower, and the secondary or the lower wall was, say, 28 feet from the tower, it would not have any effect on the structural integrity of the tower whatsoever. It will, having the single wall or having a terraced wall, if you want to call it that, wouldn't have that effect at all, because you're still maintaining that 25, what they consider a 25-foot distance between the foundation of the tower and the wall. Because if you're going to put that wall in, let's say you start at 30 feet from the tower, and you put your first wall up, you come up 6 feet, or how many feet you need? You come in a couple of feet, you go up. Even if you had to go to 23 feet by bringing in, you're not going to change the structural integrity of the tower, because you're not digging deep enough to cause anything. You may be only going down, maybe the bottom section could be 7 feet, and then the second part of it could be 5 feet. And in this way, you wouldn't have as much, as was a lot of stone staring at you, cement staring at you.
Right, so I understand. And again, let me come back, let me provide a technical response for why we can't make that work.
I have a few-
Wait a minute, let me just finish, and I'll let you have it.
Sorry, Mr.
The other thing you could possibly do is put some sort of vegetation that would hang over the wall, like a vine or something, to reduce the amount of
Yep.
cement. And like you said, to be honest, it looks like, right now, the way you look at it, it looks like a prison wall. And then when I asked you about the fencing, you're talking 18 feet, and I assume the fence is going to be a chain link fence.
Correct.
Yeah, so you're talking 18 feet. So I think it's something that we should strongly consider. I have no objection to a wall. My only objection is how we're going to put it up.
Yeah, no, I recognize the need for the wall. We're just trying to help you make a wall that's better. Functional for what
Understood.
you need, but
Understood.
The thing is, we live here, and I use Westlake Drive a lot. I don't want to look at that every morning when I go by. You know, it's like looking at garbage cans hanging off the side of a house. It's terrible. And this is our community, and, you know, maybe that would be fine in an isolated area, but here we've got some expensive homes, and it takes away from the community, this design that you have. But like I said, I'm not against the wall. I just think we have to redefine the wall.
May I inquire, Mr.
Sure, go right ahead.
So, to the chairman's point, I was going to inquire with you if you think you would be open to some screening of some sort. Mr. Chairman mentioned some vines, or maybe some trees or shrubberies, some greenery to be put into the design to soften the look and the feel of just that large concrete wall.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take a look. I don't know what we can actually provide, but I certainly can take a look.
Trees, in
Yeah.
the middle. So, anything that might help do that might help the project. I had another question for you. You had mentioned earlier, going back to the parking lot issue, I heard you say that you were going to be, the DEP would be, did I hear you say you're going to be deeding the land to the school for the,
So it remains city property, but we would give an easement to the school district to use and maintain the parking lot.
okay. All right, so I misheard.
It's similar to the road itself. The road would be, the town would be given an easement for use and maintenance of the road.
All right, so when you go back between meetings, if you could ask and inquire about the additional space. And the reason why I say this, I want to belabor the point, and maybe I'm the only one bringing it up or has brought it up, but when you live here and you have kids in school and you realize what a bad situation it is, and you see an opportunity to alleviate for future generations the ability to access those fields in a way that's directly related to a project that you're doing already by moving the parking lot, it's something that really wouldn't affect your project at all, just to add some more space and more access to the fields in an area where you'd already be doing work. It would just be a terrible opportunity to miss to try and help this situation
Right.
in this fashion. So that's why I'm
Yeah,
bringing it up.
and I totally get it and I understand, and so, yeah, let me go back and get the history on that. Sure, yep.
Is there anyone here for or against the application who would wish to speak before the board? Okay. Since we've had all of these questions, I would like to see the possibility of saying that maybe we should adjourn this application until the next meeting so that it gives the applicant time to take a look at, the items that we've questioned, especially regarding the wall. I always believe that there's theory and application. Theory is wonderful. Applying it is something else. I think there's room for it, and it would be the betterment of both the DEP, Con Edison, and the community if we were able to make some sort of changes in that wall design. All right?
Thank you, sir.
So, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting until the next?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chairman, there appeared to be a willingness on the part of the applicant to answer some of the questions that were presented during this session. And I would make application on that basis to adjourn this application to the next meeting.
Okay, do I have a second? Second by Mr. DeChico. Ms. Novak?
Agree. I think we should adjourn.
Agree.
I'd like some more information.
Okay, and chairman votes so. It's adjourned 4-0.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much. Next application is 2429 Daniel Clark.
Tough act to follow, but.
I was going to say, I was hoping that we don't have as much of a problem here.
My name is
Would you like
Rob.
to answer?
Sure.
Testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you are Daniel Clark?
No, I'm Rafael Alba, the applicant.
I'm sorry?
Rafael Alba, the applicant.
You're representing him?
Yes.
And you are?
I'm an architect, and I live in CP Hollow.
Name of your firm?
De La Garza Architecture
And where are you located?
in CP Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow. This is regarding the premises located at 17 Linwood Street West in Valhalla, which is designated on the tax map as 89/112.20-2, -77. The application is for a proposed 6-foot high fence to the rear and side yards on the standard parcel of 10,000 square feet in R10 zone. Maximum fence height is 4, you're proposing 6, and you need a 2-foot variance.
Correct.
What kind of fence are you putting up?
Just a vinyl fence, a 5-foot vinyl fence. I have
I'm from Missouri, you gotta show me. Okay, so what we're talking about is a fence with a lattice top.
correct, yeah.
All right. One of the things that this board has always been concerned about is not so much the height of the fence, but when you have a solid fence and you're staring at it, it doesn't look appealing. And especially with white plastic fences, if they're facing the north or the west, they get moldy and they look like hell. The fact that you're putting in I'll call it the trellis on the top, is a positive thing. So with that, I have no other questions, so Ms. Novak,
No questions.
Mr. DeChico?
No question.
We're on a roll. Mr. Lopatos?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone here for or against this application?
Mr. Chairman, seeing that there's no speakers or no members of the public that wish to speak in the application, I move that we approve application Z-2429 as submitted with the condition that the top 1 foot of the fence be of a lattice type design such as shown by the applicant.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Novak. Mr. Lopatos?
Aye.
Aye, chairman votes aye, so it's carried 4-0.
Thank you.
Just make sure the fences go there.
Make sure it's clean, too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You've seen this before.
Next application is 2430 Craig Vogel.
Is this on? On, testing, 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 testing.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. Raise your right hand, sir. Testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, and you are?
My name is Joel Greenberg from Architectural Visions. I'm the architect for Mr. Vogel, and this is my associate, Marty Stayscale.
Okay. When we were out there on Saturday, I noticed you're putting a fence across the front of the new parking lot area and the building. Could you explain everything to us?
Yes, of course. Okay, just hold this up. This is the site, which is approximately 2.5 acres. There is a restaurant very close to Columbus Avenue, and this is the building that we're talking about. Well, I will have the pictures shown in a few minutes. And then there's also another one-story building in the back of the property. What we're trying to do here now is to, right now, if you've seen the building, we can show you the pictures. Why don't you flip it around? Just to give you a little bit of a history, this structure was built in the 1930s, so it's obviously fairly old, and it's in not a great shape to begin with. The other thing that we want to avoid is, right now, to get to the second-story apartment, you have to walk through this steel staircase, which obviously is not very safe, and especially when there's ice and snow in the winter. So what we're trying to do basically is to upgrade the apartments, the 2 apartments. We're going to basically just completely redo the outside of the building and make it very, very appealing. The interesting thing is, and to get back to the reason for the fence, as you can see, what we're doing is similar to what the previous application had, which would be a vinyl fence with the lattice on top. And the reason we're doing that is, as you can see, this is the property itself, and the building that we're talking about is right in the middle of the property. So in order to give a little bit of privacy to the 2 tenants that will be coming into this building, that's why we want to have a fence where they can, they don't have to, people don't have to look in that are going either to the restaurant or parking in the restaurant area. We're also providing an area here where they can have some outdoor activities. But again, give them some privacy. We've also going to have striped parking around the building to give it enough adequate parking for the for the 2 apartments. But just again to go through the again, we're requesting a variance from section 21880, which is titled non-conforming use of buildings. Again, this is a non-conforming use, and the only thing, according to the code 21880, is that you're allowed to fix it, but you're not allowed to increase it. The footprint basically is going to be exactly the same. The footprint of the building is going to be exactly the same. The only difference is that this section is 2 stories, and we want to make the balance of the building 2 stories. But again, the structure and the footprint of the building will be exactly the same. And That's the reason for the variance. Also, again, because of the situation with privacy, we'd like to have the 6-foot fence with the lattice on top, just to give them some privacy, because again, the restaurant obviously is going to be very active, especially in the afternoon and the evenings, so to give them some area where they can have some privacy. But just going through the criteria for an area variance, basically going through it, whether it be undesirable change in the neighborhood, I think obviously if we can show you the elevations, it would be a tremendous improvement to the neighborhood. Obviously, as you can see from your site inspection and the pictures that we showed here, there.
Mr. Chairman, is it your understanding that an area variance is necessary for expanding the use? I
Yes,
thought you were going to pursue a use variance. I mean, the area variance, I thought I heard you say area variance.
Yes.
So you believe that expanding the use of a non-conforming property requires an area variance, not a use variance?
That was my understanding, yes.
Did you consult with
Yes.
an attorney on that?
Well, we consulted, we met with the building inspector and the staff, and that's what we were basically told to do.
Which building inspector was that?
This gentleman right here.
Here or there. Question is, you have an existing building. Are you enlarging this building, or are you just reconfiguring the inside of this building?
The answer is yes. Come back. The blue area is a 2-story section. The orange area is a 1-story section. So
That's current,
yes,
right.
right. So we're basically, what we're doing is we're making the entire building 2 stories.
So you're expanding the square footage,
Yes.
increasing the square footage.
Correct.
And once you do that, you require a variance, but I don't believe it's an area variance.
Well, again, we're not changing the use. The use is still the same. It's still a 2-family house. And again, we did consult with the town, and I believe that, again,
So it's currently a multifamily
yes,
use?
Yes.
And you're continuing to look to use it as a multifamily use?
Exactly.
Just expanding one of the units with this new addition?
Yes.
But not changing it from single-family use to...
no,
Okay.
we're not changing anything.
Okay. I misunderstood.
Okay.
The current zone is
Single-family?
Single.
Yes, that's correct.
why I thought you were taking a single-family unit and making it into a
No,
dual.
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
It's dual-family now?
It's 2-family house.
And has been since 1930?
The 1930s, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so, but again, let's just go through the criteria again. I don't think we're going to do anything that will produce a change in an undesirable change in the neighborhood itself. There's no other way we can do this without getting a variance, so that's criteria number 2. Whether the requested area variance is substantial, again, we're not changing the footprint, so the footprint of the new structure will be exactly the same as it is right now, and we're just making the apartments more congenial and more likable and usable. And of course, in this particular area, the need for apartments, as the owner has found out, is great, so that fixing these apartments up will certainly make a nice change to the neighborhood. And finally, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which is a consideration, but certainly shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. And I'll be happy to answer any
You have to
questions.
excuse my ignorance for this. The orange building,
The orange building is 1 story.
is that existing?
Yes.
Okay. And what are you
Again-
going to do with that orange building? Are you going to make it a 2-story building?
Correct, that's correct.
So you're raising, but you're not changing,
The footprint stays exactly the same.
so we're
It's
raising
still-
it vertically
Yes,
coming up, okay.
and number 1, of course, it'll meet the height requirements.
But once you increase the square footage, though, I think then you're running afoul of the pre-existing non-conforming use of the property.
But we're not
That
changing
you're
the use.
limited, but you're not, just because you're not increasing the footprint, doesn't mean that you're not changing the pre-existing non-conforming use of the property. You are, because you're expanding it. Once you increase the square footage, I think you need a use variance.
That's what the applicant's for, use variance.
But there's different criteria for a use variance. I believed he was not only saying he was applying for an area variance, which now was maybe incorrect, but I think he was applying the criteria on a 267B for an area variance.
No, it's not an area, it's a use variance, 21880, it's a single family.
But you know the applicant said he was applying for an area variance. When he first started speaking, and that's why
Oh, okay,
The fence is one thing.
the fence is entirely distinct from this
Right.
topic. What I'm talking about is simply with respect to the change in the pre-existing non-conforming use of the structure on the property that provides for a tenant residency. If you expand it, the square footage of it, not just the footprint. I agree with you. I understand you're not increasing the footprint.
Exactly.
But once you increase the square footage, now you have to comply with the code. And you need a use variance in order to achieve that expansion. You lose, okay, maybe this is the best way to put it. You lose your pre-existing non-conforming status.
but
You
the
lose that
footprint is,
status. Once you expand, you lose your pre-existing non-conforming use status. That's, I think, the way to put it. I believe.
okay, I understand what you're saying. But again, to repeat myself, the footprint stays the same, and yes, the only thing we're doing is we're adding some square footage so that the two apartments become more livable.
All right, but let me just stop you. Based upon what I believe, you can't have a two-unit structure on that lot anymore. Once you increase the square footage, you lose your pre-existing non-conforming use of the property. Once you lose that, you can't have a dual occupancy unit at that site. Do you see what I'm saying?
Understand what you're saying,
Okay,
but
so-
I don't necessarily agree that we have to, this has been here for, what, almost
And
100
you're
years.
lucky because it was before the code. So because it was before the code, you were able to keep it going since 1930 as a non-conforming lot.
Correct.
And that was lucky. But now you're going to change it, and you're going to add to it.
What am I
Once you
cha-
do that,
what am I
things
changing?
change. The status of that property changes. It is no longer going to be a pre-existing non-conforming use. That's my point. And as a pre-existing non-conforming use, you can't have two units there. You can only have one. That's what the code requires in an R10. You see what I'm saying? now?
R10, you're right. R10 is a one-family zone, that's correct.
That's what I'm saying.
But we're not changing the
You're ex-
footprint, no, let me
Yeah,
let me
footprint,
finish.
yes.
Okay, so basically, all we're doing is we're making the apartments more livable and more safe
And-
can I finish?
Expanding.
What am I expanding? I'm
The
expanding
size, the square
yes.
footage.
Well,
That's where you're running afoul of what you're looking to do.
The statute that was noticed was 21880.
21880.
21880. The issue, if you read 21880, as was shown to us, is that the building shall not be enlarged or extended unless such building or structure, including such enlargements or extensions, is made to conform to all regulations, including use for the district
I know.
which it is situated. So, what we're hearing and what we're seeing is that if you kept everything the same and you were just improving what you had, that would be one thing. But when you're making the one side a second story, that could be considered, in theory, an enlargement. And if you're enlarging it, then you lose the ability, in theory, potentially, to have a second structure, a second unit.
Second unit.
Second unit. So that's the issue. And perhaps that needs some more investigation or look.
So what this gentleman is saying is that if we want to do what we want to do, you want to have me justify the criteria for a use variance. Is that correct?
That
Yes.
would seem to be what I'm.
If you look at 21880B, it states such non-conforming buildings shall not be structurally altered unless such alterations are required by law, provided, however, that such maintenance repair of the work is as required. So you can maintain the building, you may have to conform the building to the law, but you can't expand it.
Let me explain to you. You can put new siding on it, new windows, you can make it look beautiful. You could fix it up, but you can't expand it. Once you expand it, the square footage, I understand you're not increasing the footprint, but once you expand it, you're losing your status as a pre-existing non-conforming use. Once you lose that status, you lose your ability to have 2 units on that lot. That structure, it becomes a R10 code-required single occupancy structure. That's why you're having a problem.
Unless you could go down the factors of the use variance, which are, as you know,
Which are
more
different.
difficult. and
I know
difficult.
exactly what they are. I've
Okay.
gotten
I know
many,
that's where we're at.
Which is why I wasn't delineating for you. I'm just saying, we're just putting for the record, for people that may not know, as opposed to the factors that you were going through before, effect on the neighborhood and things that might apply to the fence, those would be different than what would, the factors we would.
Right, the area
consider
variance
for
factors are
use
not
variance.
applicable.
I know exactly. I've gotten many use variances
No,
over the
yes,
years.
sir, I know you know, but I was trying to make that point.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm just trying to make the record clear for the audience that might trying to follow what we're saying. We understand that you've done this for a long time, so.
So basically, it's the board's feeling that we should come back for, and go through the criteria for use variance? Am I correct?
That's what we actually.
And that's what we,
That's what we
Yeah.
noticed. Yeah, it is a use variance.
Except that the presentation was for an area variance. That's the rub so far.
well, it was my fault because I was doing the fence.
No
and
problem.
I understand
Because
that.
it was noticed properly, I don't think you need to renotice.
No,
It's just a question, maybe if you want to come back on another date to make an argument for a use variance, a presentation for a use variance, we could hear that at that time.
okay, let me just, give me 2 seconds to
Yeah, sure.
look over the criteria. Okay, then I think that's probably the best thing to do.
Okay.
And when is your
We'll
next
adjourn
meeting?
this until the next meeting,
Yes, when is your next meeting?
next month.
It's on September 8th, but now with 2 carryovers, I'm full already, so I might have to bump you guys up. I have to talk to the inspector.
Well, since we would like to get this thing done before the winter, if it can be done in September, that would be great. And we'll make the presentation.
Before, so it'll be 8 on the agenda?
No, it's gonna make 9 or 10.
Maybe we can accommodate it, because I don't think it's going to be that long.
I'm sorry. I'm Craig Vogel.
Oh, this is
I'm
Mr.
the owner.
Vogel.
Just want to know, there's nothing that we could wrap up here? I mean, what else is going to be said
No,
tonight?
there's certain things that we have to provide them. So
You're advertised correctly.
You were advertised correctly,
Yeah,
but
everything
we
was
have
on
to,
there.
there's certain things that we have to.
Okay.
The fence is not an issue.
No, I know.
The fait accompli. It's expanding the building that you have. And state law requires that if you have a 2-family house in a, say, 1-family zone, and it's been grandfathered in, as long as you maintain it, as I said before, you can put new siding in, you can do this, windows, new boiler, but you can't expand it. That's the area in question, that's the sticking point. So it's, the board can work within certain areas. We got leeways that we can work to alter the law somewhat. But in a case like this, it's going to be a little bit much more difficult. So rather than debate this issue continually, I think you have to go back and really re-examine that particular application.
No problem, we shall do that.
Yeah, and it's for everyone's interest.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
we'll hopefully see you in September.
We'll be able to.
Yeah, we can put it in. Don't worry, we had the DEP.
No, we'd appreciate that.
All right.
And we'll be prepared, and obviously, we'll go quickly with the criteria.
We try our very best.
No, I know,
to-
and I appreciate
Like I
that.
always tell people who come before the board, nobody walks away with a full loaf of bread.
Half a loaf is better than none,
Half a
right?
loaf of bread is better than none.
So
Okay.
we'll see you on the next meeting. We'll make an application.
Actually,
Mr.
the
Chairman, make an
song, we'll see
application
you
to
in
adjourn.
September.
Adjourn to the next meeting.
It's a good song.
Next
It's a
available
good
meeting.
song.
Thank you.
Thank you
Do I
very
have a motion to,
Adjourn to the next available meeting.
yes.
I make an application to
Okay.
adjourn to the next available.
Do I have a second?
So moved.
All right,
So second.
your second, Mr. DeChico. Ms. Novak?
Aye.
Aye, all right. Chairman says aye. So we'll see
So
you.
we'll notify them. We'll tell them.
Joel, I'll tell you. I'll call you.
Okay.
but we'll try to get it on for September. That's the goal.
All right, the last one for the evening is Justin Conderay. Did I pronounce that correctly?
So next inspection.
We always save the best for last.
There you
I
go.
want you to know.
One truly is
All
the loneliest time, huh?
You're the owner of the premises located at 137 Jefferson Avenue in
Correct.
Glen Allen? Okay, would you raise your right hand? Testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
It is.
Okay. The application is a proposed installation of a new garden shed with pad on a legal standard, .17 acres in the R10 zone. Rear yard and side yard setback requirements of 5 feet. Existing is none, proposing 2.5, variance is 2.5, correct?
Correct.
All right. I don't think you need that. Don't worry about it. The main concern is when we were out there on Saturday, you have a lot of room back there on the side.
Yep.
So whether you you're trying to line it up with the neighbor behind you?
I'm trying to, so there was an existing shed there when we bought the house 4 years ago, and you can see the outline. I don't know if you, I don't know you guys were out, I didn't know you all were out there, so I would have cleaned it up.
Pointed it out quick.
I would have cleaned it up. My kids have turned it into their personal play area. At the time when we bought the house, we had 2 children. My wife's working on she's pregnant with her 4th now, so space is limited. We have a single car garage, so we'd like to move. When we bought the house, they made the owner tear down the shed while we were far along in the buying of the home process. So we wanted the shed, long story short, and they had him tear it down. And they had him tear it down because it was up against the fence, and it wasn't in compliance with the setbacks. So we're trying to do it the right way. And there's a sprinkler system that we put in, and that's what I wanted to highlight on the slides. And maybe, I doubt you all saw the sprinkler system. If we were to comply with the setbacks as they are, we'd be required to make a shed. It would have to be 6 foot by like 5.5 feet, 5.5 by 6 feet. So it'd be a very small shed because of the sprinkler system where they're lined up. So by moving the setback to 2.5 feet, when you include the pad of the shed, that will enable us to build an 8 foot by 12 foot shed, which is a big shed. It's a difference in about 64%. I know nominally it's not a lot, but on a percentage basis, it changes. And I would like to do a Dutch shed that has a little bit of a loft area. I've also picked out a nice aesthetically pleasing shed. I enjoy all of my neighbors very much. They're great, and I want to build something that improves the home value of the home. I don't just want to stick a shed back there. So it's a more expensive shed. The proposed project should cost around $7,000 to $10,000. So I'm trying to do it a right way that's aesthetically pleasing to my neighbors, something that will improve the layout, that won't require me to dig up the sprinkler system, which the current setbacks would require me to dig up the sprinkler system. So I would either have to dig up the sprinkler system and move the sprinkler system to get an 8 foot by 12 foot shed, or I would have to keep the sprinkler system where it is, comply with the 5 foot setbacks, and install a 64% smaller shed than what I'm proposing here today.
All right, let me ask you this question. What if you were, how many sprinkler heads are involved?
2.
2. Sprinkler system, the plastic piping is about 12 inches below ground?
I'll take your word
is.
for it. Okay.
Okay. You could take the existing pipe and connect it so that you remove that sprinkler head. That's now a solid pipe with a connector. You can bring that piece over, and then you can put that existing head, move it over 4 feet or whatever you want, connect it to the existing line. You can do the same thing with the other. You're not going down far with it. And in this way, you wouldn't even have to come before us. And you could still have the size shed you wanted.
Got it.
The question is, do you want to dig 2 holes, 1 foot deep, or 4 holes, I'm sorry. Dig 4 holes, 2 to remove your plumbing line there, and 2 to put the new ones in. I think it would be good for you to go with the 5 by 5, still go with your full size, you can get your full-size shed that you want, and it's not gonna cost you that much to dig 2 holes and move it over. That's your choice. It would be my choice, I'll tell you that, rather than go through all the rigmarole. And you'll still have more room to get, the other thing is to get around that
To get what?
shed. Yeah, because we're talking about a distance of this much. That's about 30 inches.
Exactly, yep.
Yeah. So it's not a make, but you have a beautiful backyard. It's very nice, fenced in, if I recall. So that 2.5 feet is de minimis. And I think that would be a great way for you to get around it.
I don't mind speaking to you all. So I would prefer to get it closer to the fence line just to have more area in the backyard for my children to play. I'm not an incredibly handy guy, so I won't be doing this construction on my own. So digging up, I have no idea how much this
All
costs
you
to
need
dig
is
up.
a little shovel,
There you go.
dig a little hole, and go
But-
down 12
I think it
inches.
sounds always
pull it
so
out.
simple.
Well, one of the things, yeah, I just want to point out, Mr. Chairman, when we did our site visit, I did note that there's a shed on the abutting property that's in the exact same location as your proposed shed.
Yep.
And I'm also going to take note of the fact that you're actually coming here first, before putting in your shed, asking for permission rather than for forgiveness, which is kind of refreshing these days, Mr. Chairman.
True.
Maybe the 2.5 feet being a somewhat de minimis, as you said, distance, you need this additional space for this shed to accommodate this rather large family that's continuing to grow. A
Yeah.
lot of toys, a lot of child items.
Yeah, you saw it. Yeah.
And
We enjoy the
and you're not a
backyard.
particularly handy guy to go and do this digging, so it would be an expense for you to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it would.
Me too.
It
I
would.
wouldn't be able
We're
to
not
take a
digging a
little
water
shovel and
tub,
dig this
you
up either. I would just suggest that maybe as it is a de minimis application, maybe we could consider approving it as submitted.
I'm not objecting to the application. I'm offering an alternative.
True.
That's what I would do is what I would do. You would do what you want to do. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see a big deal. 30 inches is not going to make or break it.
Well, from my perspective, Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's an unreasonable request for all the reasons stated on the record.
Okay.
Can I just add something? Interrupt you. I heard him correctly, he said a loft. You can't do a loft in a shed.
Oh, you can't? Okay.
Yeah, it's only 12 feet maximum height of the loft.
So this will,
One story.
okay, so
Just
even
the
if it's a
size of-
half
You're gonna have
size?
to get the size of the shed worked out.
Got it.
But as far as how close to the property line, we could deal with that.
Which is the issue that's actually before
Yeah.
us. And then that's why it's great that you didn't go and put a shed up that's non-compliant and then come here and ask for forgiveness rather than permission ahead of time, because you won't put in a non-compliant shed. You'll do a compliant shed that the building inspector will help you design.
Great.
We had an application years ago where we approved a deck for somebody, and that person decided, well, I'm going to make my deck a little bigger. And they came before us, and he said, well, what am I going to do? I said, you go to Decker to a rental, you rent a saw, and you cut it back. And
We don't want
you don't want to do that.
Got it.
I have no problem with this at all. Is there anybody here for or against this application?
I am, sir.
You are?
Joseph Pomerano Jr., I am the owner of 42 East Livingston Street, Ballard. I have bought this property to the right.
Okay.
I have no problem with it.
Thank you, sir.
It's fine with me.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, you got a good neighbor.
Mr. Chairman, I could like to make an application at this time to approve Z2432 as submitted then?
Fine. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second by Mrs. Chico. Ms. Novak?
Give the man a place to hide from 4 children. Give him a shed. Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, that's.
All I can tell you is, you may have young children. I have older children. They're like fleas, they don't leave you. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a
sir.
wonderful
Enjoy.
evening. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second. Mr.
Aye.
Lapagos? Aye. Meeting is
Aye.
closed.
Aye.